In 2011, we literally more than doubled the number of Americans living in a state where gay people can share in the freedom to marry.
We're still starting to understand the importance of winning marriage in New York, and in the way that we did it, in a bipartisan way with the majority of New Yorkers behind us.
It is astounding how far our country's come, even in the last 15 years on this issue. And that means that a huge amount of the country has changed its mind.
I first got involved in the marriage movement in December of 2009, when the New York State Senate was voting on a marriage equality bill. There was a lot of excitement in the sense that we might finally pass the bill and pass marriage equality. And I was a student at law school at the time, and I was right in the middle of final exams, and I was watching the vote on my laptop, and I watched us fail. And it really struck me that I wanted to live in New York for the rest of the foreseeable future. I wanted to marry Chris, the person that I love, and I wanted to be a full citizen. I wanted to have that freedom to marry. And so that really sparked me to get involved in the movement.
In the past, we had talked a lot about rights. We had talked about the important protections of marriage and how those rights and benefits affected people. But what moderates needed to hear and folks in the middle needed to hear was that gay couples had the same promise of lifetime commitment to each other. We found that the more you convinced voters in the middle that gay couples actually wanted to get married for the same reasons as any other couple, that they wanted to make that lifetime commitment, that was what got people over the line to support marriage.
Marriage propels understanding. It propels identity. By claiming that vocabulary, we as gay people have brought ourselves into a conversation that in turn helps a broader number of people, gay and non-gay, understand our common humanity, our common aspirations.
We saw for the first time business leaders and CEOs and folks who had never said, marriage is my issue, get involved and add their voice. And then of course we saw thousands of families and same-sex couples tell their stories.
New York didn't just happen when we voted in the legislature in 2011. It happened based on years of engagement by local groups, by national partners who year after year invested time and money in generating the coverage and the conversations that built a solid majority of New Yorkers in favor of the freedom to marry.
In our research, we found with people in the middle, they're very reticent to move in a hot political battle. It's hard for them when people are going back and forth on the airwaves and there's attack ads back and forth. They kind of disengage and they just end up going to their default setting. That's why it's so important that we continue to do the public education work that we've done before we get to that point. Because when the ballot initiative comes up or when the legislative vote comes up, it's not the best time to get to them. The best time to get to them is the 3 years before that.
There had been years of public education work, and the groundwork had been laid to build a majority that was needed in the New York State Legislature for marriage.
One of the real challenges our movement has faced as a relatively young community and young movement in terms of organizing and philanthropic culture is that we've never been funded to scale. Donors, even the generous ones, often leave several zeros off the checks they write to gay groups compared to what they may give to other causes they support. And so the key to success is investing in a sustained strategy backed by a campaign that can really look at the landscape and move the money, as well as the time and volunteers and energy, in early to build the foundation that leads to victories, as we saw in New York.
I think donors working together is incredibly important to get anything done, and we saw that in New York in a really big way. We knew we were going to win or lose together.
When we won the freedom to marry in New York, one of the things that kept coming to me was the historical satisfaction that it was here in New York, not only my own home, but the birthplace of what we think of as the modern gay rights movement with Stonewall. And in Stonewall, what we were fighting for and had to fight hard for was the right to be left alone, the right to simply be not harassed, not attacked, not discriminated against by our own government, and be able to just build our own lives. And here we now had come to the place where, again, in New York, we had won not just the right to be left alone, but the right to be let in, the right to be full and equal partners in building lives together, in being part of the community, and in embracing America's promise of liberty and justice for all.
Literally after the marriage vote passed, I was on the phone the next day with our wedding planner and really excited that we could do everything in New York. We weren't going to have to go travel somewhere else. We could stay right in our home, and that's really special for us. That's really important to us.
So I got married about 6 weeks ago, and it was fantastic to be able to really have the benefits of the work that I've been doing. Here in DC, I helped with passing marriage a few years ago, and now got to take advantage of it, and it was so much more meaningful.
One of the consequences of winning the freedom to marry was that my longtime fiance and I were able to get married. And I have to say, it really was truly a happy, amazing, joyous, everything you always hear people talking about day that I'll never forget. And that power and that sweetness is something every single person in this country should have the opportunity to cherish and to be part of.